Hi everyone, this is Sunny from Database Tech. So today I had come up with one more new session on SQL Server Database. In our previous sessions of SQL commands part 1 and part 2, we had covered what is DDL, DQL and DML. In case you are not aware of these categories, you can go through my previous sessions on same. In today's session, I will explain what is DCL. So DCL is one more category of SQL commands and it stands for Data Control Language, which deals with the rights, permissions and other controls of the database system. Now, what does that mean? See, as we saw that DCL is a category of SQL commands, and in this category we use commands like grant and revoke. With use of these commands, what we do, we deal with the rights and permissions. So now let's understand this practically in SQL Server. For that, let's open SQL Server first. Now what commands we have? Grant and revoke. And these commands belongs to which category? It is DCL. And DCL stands for Data Control Language. Now let's understand what these commands do, how do they work. So with grant command we provide access on database objects to the users, and with revoke command we take back access from the users. So what's important here to understand is users, like how we can add users, where can we check users and how we can use them. So let's understand that first. From the left side you can see what we have. It is Object Explorer and this is server. Now users we can find at database level. What does that mean, database level? It means users we can check in databases. If you need to check users, what you have to do, you have to go to the database. Let's see how. So from the left side you can see we have databases. Click here. Inside that you will find multiple databases like test, school, books and many other. What you have to do, take an database like, for now let's take test. Click here and then you will find security. Click on security. Inside that you will find users. Click here. So these are the users that we have in this test database. Similarly, if you need to check users for any database, you have to follow the same steps that I showed you. And now, if you need some more details of the user, what you can do, just click on any user, any specific user, like for now we have DBO. Just select DBO, do the right click and properties. So you will get all the details about that specific user which you have selected. You will find general details, owner schema, membership and etc. So in general you can see we have username and login name. So what's login name? Login name I'll show you later. But for now let's understand. So under this login we have this user which is DBO. So login is, let me show you login also so that you can understand this in a better way. Cancel here. Logins. So logins we have at server level. Users we checked we have at database level, but logins we have at server level. Let's see how. Click here. Now this is server. Click here on the server. You will find security. Inside the security you will find logins. Click on logins. So these are the logins we have under this server. So to check the logins you don't need to go to the databases. You have to go to the server. In that you will find security and then logins. So these are the logins that we have. If you need further more details about that login, what you can do, select to right click on that login, properties. So these are the details. If you need to check the user mapping, like what users we have in this login, you can click on user mapping. So for this login, what we have this user which is DBO. And now this DBO user can access what databases? Master, model, MSDB, TempDB. Okay. But this way you can check logins and users. Now you may have understood the difference between users and logins. Users we have at database level and logins we have at server level. And to understand this in a better way, let me show you this from scratch, like how we can add users and how we can add logins. Let's do this. To create a login, what you have to do, create login name. Just give some name. Before that, before creating a login, let me show you where do we need to give login details and why. You may have seen when you open SQL Server or when you click on File, Connect Object Explorer, you have seen this window always. What is this window about? It is the server name and authentication type. In server name, it is a server, and for my machine it is this, but in your case it may be different. And authentication, we have two types of authentication. One is Windows and other is SQL Server authentication. In Windows, if you are selecting Windows authentication, you don't need to provide credentials like login and password. But for SQL Server type of authentication, you have to provide login name and password. You can see now, like when the authentication is Windows, it is disabled. When we select SQL Server authentication, you can find now these are enabled and you have to provide the credentials for login and password. So this is the login that we were discussing here. So here you have to provide the details of the login, which I will show you how we can create that. So I think that has been understood. And SQL Server type authentication is more secure than Windows authentication because it is more private and you have to provide the credentials and that are more secure. So let's see how we can create this login details and what are the limitations and how we can use them. So create login name. So give some name like test 1234 with password equal to 5. Because it is SQL Server authentication, you have to give the login and password, and this is login and this is password. Now let's execute this query. You can see the output as command completed successfully, which means our query has worked. Now what's next? We have to do the login now with these credentials. So let's do that. File, connect Object Explorer. Here you have to change the authentication. Now what login we have created, it is test 1 2 3 and 4. And for password, what we have to do, 1 2 3 4 5. Connect. Now from the left side in Object Explorer, you can see one new server has been opened. You can see that. So this login is which we have created here with this credential. If you need to check, you can go to the security. This is server. Go to the security, logins, and you will find the login which we had created just now. Test 1 2 3 and 4. Now what if you now access some database Let me show you like the database. Now I will show you. Now we had created login, and in this login what we do now, we will create user, and then after I will show you these two commands. Now let's access this server and the databases. If you click, you will see the database book is not accessible. So nothing is accessible right now in this login which we have created. So for that, let's create user, because you have created login but there is no user in this login. So it's very mandatory to create a user first. And how to create user? What is the syntax? It's very simple. Create user Sunny test for login. What's login? Test 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we have created user, the name is Sunny test, and login is this one which we have already created. Let's execute this. Command completed successfully and it has worked. But one thing you have to remember here, you have created this user inside which database? Which database is selected here? Master. So it's very important to just remember that if you are executing this query in this master, so this user will get created in that database only. Now to check this user, what you have to do, you have to go to this database, because users we have at database level, which we have already seen. Now to check this user, what we can do here, first refresh this, go to databases, in that go to master here, and then security users. So what user we have created? It is Sunny test. Just find this. Okay, so this is the user that we created just now, for which login? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. So our user has been created. Now what's next? We have to provide access on database objects to this user. And now we have to provide access to this user which we have created, that is Sunny test. And how we can do that? With grant command. So let's do that. Grant select on. So first we have to select some data table. So for now let's choose some data table here. So for now let's select some data, like for now select here employee. Okay, EMPLOYE to what's user? Sunny test. This table that we have from earlier login, from the existing login. So this is the old one, and we are providing access to this user from this login. Don't get confused. See, this login, this employee table is from existing login, this one. Okay, and what this user we have created here from this login. The user is Sunny test, and this Sunny test belongs to which login? Which is test 1, 2, Sunny test 1, 2, 3, 4. This one, the new one. Now what we are doing here with the grant command, we are providing access to this user which we have created for this new login, and to which we are providing access to which table? That is employee. And we are providing access on what? Like now this user, what he can do, he can execute select queries. He can only execute select queries inside this login. So let's do that first, and then I will show you how. Execute, but first let's see one thing here, then you will understand this in a better way. Inside this login, if you check here tables, you will not find any table. Let me do the refresh also, and don't get confused. Refresh, click on tables. Do you find any table? No, there are no tables inside this master database and inside this tables. Now, once we execute this query, we will provide access to this user. You can see the difference. Execute, command completed successfully. When we refresh it again, so this table comes here. Once we execute this query, this table comes here, and this is the database object, this one employee. So we are providing access to this user for this table. Now this user, what he can do, he can select queries from this table. Let's do that. Select star from employee. You can see that we are getting the output for this user, for this table. Now when we execute some other query like insert into employee values 3 test, will it work? What do you think? It will not work. Why? Because we had not given access to this user for some other query. We are already, this user can only access select queries, and if we need to provide some other access, other database object, then we have to provide access with the grant command. Now let's check whether it's working or not and what error we will get. You can see the insert permission was denied on the object employee. So this object, this user cannot access this object which we are doing here. We cannot insert. For that, what we have to do, we have to execute this like grant. For now, we have to use insert. Once we execute this query here, now when we execute this again, one row affected, and you can check the output, this third row gets inserted. You may have now understood like how we can use grant command to provide access on database objects, which is like this one. This is a database object to the users. Similarly, if you need to provide, if you have to do the update and or some other query you want that user should get access to, that what you have to do, you have to use grant command. Like if you need to update, what you can do here, you have to use update. Then this user can access, can do the update queries as well. And if you don't want to do it individually, if you want all in one query, what you can do, update, insert, delete, select all in one. Now with this query, this user Sunny Test can access everything with this query. He can do insert, he can do update, he can do delete or select. You don't need to run these separately. Now this was grant command. Now what about the revoke? So revoke, as I said, we use to take back access from the users. This user has access to execute the select queries, but now you get a requirement, you don't need to provide access to that user to get select the queries. So that user should not able to access the select command. What you have to do, you have to use revoke Select on employee to Sunny test. Command completed successfully. Now when you again execute this query, will it work? No, because you have revoked the access for this user. Similarly, if you need to revoke some other queries as well, so what you can do, revoke, update, revoke, delete, revoke, select, and whatever is the requirement, depends on the requirement, what you can do accordingly. So that was grant and revoke command and how we can use them to provide access on database objects to the users and to take back access from the users. So in this session, what we have learned, users, what are DCL commands, how we can use grant and revoke, what are users, what are logins, and what is the difference between users and logins, and how we can execute the queries and can provide the access to the user and take back access from the users. So that was it for today's session. We'll come up with the next session shortly. Till then, have a nice day. Bye bye. Take care. Be healthy, be safe, and one more thing, love your family. That's very important.